All right, so are you ready for this? We are diving deep today into baseball and one of its biggest controversies. We're talking about Pete Rose. You know him, right? The hit king. And there's a new chapter in this whole battle he's had with Major League Baseball for decades.
It's really something.
It is. And we've got articles here, a whole bunch of them. We've got MLB trade rumors, ESPN's in on it, even the New York Times. So this is a pretty big deal. You probably know the basics about Pete Rose. He's got the most hits in history, won 3 World Series titles. I mean, the guy was a machine.
Crowley Hustle, they called him.
Oh, yeah. But he's also banned,
Yeah.
Banned for life from the sport.
Yeah, that's a shame.
And so that's why this deep dive is so interesting. It's not just about what happened way back when, but what's going on now with his family in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, and don't forget, we even have a presidential pardon thrown in there,
Oh,
too.
exactly. It's
Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah.
But, okay, let's back up a sec. So Rose is on baseball's permanently ineligible list.
Oh, yeah.
You know what that means, right? Banned for life. Can't be in the Hall of Fame. Can't manage. Nothing. No official involvement with MLB at all.
Nope.
And it all comes down to this thing called the Dowd Report back in 1989.
Right.
They found out that he was betting on baseball games while he was the manager of the Cincinnati Reds, his own team.
I know. And that's the thing about gambling in baseball. It's such a touchy subject. Even if he was betting on his team to win, it just totally messes with the idea of fairness.
Yeah, you've got to wonder about the pressure. If players or managers are betting on the games, are they going to make decisions based on the bets or what's best for the team?
Absolutely. It's a huge conflict of interest.
So it's not just about breaking some rule. It's bigger than that. It's about protecting the sport itself.
Well, yeah, 100%. And that's why, even though Rose finally admitted in 2004 that he gambled as a manager, the ban stuck. And ESPN dug up even more stuff in 2020.
Yeah.
They said he was betting even when he was a player, something he never admitted to.
Wow. Okay. So now fast forward to the present. Things just took a wild turn. Just a few months ago, March 1st, 2025, ESPN drops this bombshell. Rose's family is filing a petition.
Seriously?
Yeah. They want Commissioner Manfred to take him off the ineligible list.
Wow. Even though he's gone?
Yeah. Posthumously, they call it. Their goal, well, they want to clear his name, of course, but they also want to try to get him into the Hall of Fame.
I see. So it's not just about whether he should have been banned. It's about what happens after someone dies. Can they still be redeemed?
Exactly. It's a whole new layer to this whole thing. And as if that wasn't enough, former President Trump jumps in. The day before that ESPN report, he says he's pardoning Pete Rose.
Oh, wow. That's going to change everything, right?
Well, not so fast. See, Trump's pardon, it only covers this tax evasion thing Rose got convicted for back in 1990, totally separate from his baseball ban.
Oh, so it's more like a symbolic thing then. Like, he's saying he supports Rose, but it doesn't actually change anything legally.
Exactly. But even symbolically, it throws fuel on the fire, right? People are talking about Rose's legacy all over again, about what he did and whether he deserves another chance.
Yeah, you're right.
And here's the thing. This whole pardon comes when the world of sports betting is completely different. Back when Rose got banned, it was like the biggest threat to baseball,
Right.
Now, MLB's partnering with gambling companies, fantasy leagues are everywhere. It's basically mainstream now.
It makes you think, would people even be as upset about Rose's gambling if it happened today?
Right. Would he have even gotten such a harsh punishment? It's hard to say.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
But so, okay, we've got Rose's family fighting for him. We've got a pardon from the president. And we've got this whole changing world of sports betting. What about the Hall of Fame, though? Where did they fit in?
Right. Well, in 1991, they made this rule. They call it the Pete Rose rule.
Catchy.
It says anyone on MLB's permanently ineligible list can't even be considered for the Hall of Fame.
So even though, you can't argue with his numbers. He was a phenomenal player. But the gambling thing, it's like a brick wall.
Yeah, sadly. And the Hall of Fame has always said that even death doesn't change their rules.
But here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, I'm listening.
Commissioner Manfred. Remember, he's the one who rejected Rose's request to be reinstated back in 2015. But, and this is a big but, ESPN reported in 2020 that Manfred thinks being on the ineligible list is a punishment that ends when a player dies.
Interesting.
Right. So while he kept the ban in place when Rose was alive, maybe now that he's passed away, maybe he's open to revisiting the whole thing.
Okay, yeah. So if Manfred actually grants the family's petition and takes Rose off that list, could that mean the Hall of Fame might change their mind too?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
And that's what we're going to dig into next. Okay, so we're back, and we're still knee-deep in this whole Pete Rose thing. Family petitions, presidential pardons, and sports betting is totally different now than it was back then.
Yeah, it's a lot to wrap your head around.
It really is. But for me, and I think for a lot of people listening, the big question is about second chances. If someone was amazing at what they did, but they also broke the rules in a big way, can they ever really be forgiven? Especially after they're gone.
It's a tough one. And it's not just about baseball, Reb. We see this all the time in life. How do you judge someone who's done good things and bad things?
Yeah.
It's about trying to find that balance, I guess, especially as time goes by.
Yeah, you're right. And for Rose, it's even trickier because you've got these amazing stats. He was a Hall of Famer on paper, but then there's this whole gambling thing hanging over him. So let's just say for a minute that Commissioner Manfred decides to take Rose off the ineligible list. Does that mean he's automatically in the Hall of Fame?
Oh, not necessarily.
Yeah.
Remember, Manfred himself has said that the Hall of Fame makes its own decisions. It's not up to
Oh,
him.
right, but taking him off the ineligible list would put a lot of pressure on the Hall of Fame, wouldn't it? I mean,
Mm.
they made that Pete Rose rule specifically because he was banned. If he's not banned anymore, what happens to the rule?
Yeah, it put him in a tough spot for sure. And let's be honest, they've already been criticized for not being consistent.
Right.
You look at guys linked to performance-enhancing drugs, for instance. They're still not in the Hall of Fame.
So it's not like they can say Rose's case is totally different or that they have this zero tolerance policy for everyone. They've already made exceptions, haven't they?
Exactly. And if the public starts to feel differently about Rose, especially baseball fans, the Hall of Fame might have to listen.
And especially now, like we were saying before, sports betting is everywhere. You can't watch a game without seeing ads for it. Fantasy leagues are huge. It's not some shady thing anymore.
It makes you wonder, what if Rose had been caught gambling today? Would it have been such a big deal? Would he have gotten the same punishment?
It's hard to know,
It
right?
really is.
But it just shows you how time can change things. What was seen as a huge sin in baseball is now a normal part of the business. Kind of crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, it is. And it makes you think about what we consider right and wrong. Things change. What we thought was wrong before might not be seen that way later on. It's all about how the world changes around us.
So even if Rose never makes it into the Hall of Fame, even if this petition doesn't change anything, his story still makes us think. It makes us think about how we judge people and how we deal with forgiveness.
Yeah, it's a story that goes beyond baseball. It's about human nature, really.
Totally. And it also shows how powerful baseball is. I mean, we're talking about something that happened decades ago, and people are still passionate about it. Rose is more than just a player now. He's a symbol, a warning. And maybe, just maybe, he shows that people can change even if it takes a long time.
Right. And whether or not he gets off that list or into the Hall of Fame, his story will keep people talking. He'll always be a part of baseball history. It's like a conversation that never ends.
And that's why I think this deep dive is so interesting for everyone listening. It's about these big questions that we all face. It's about how we see the world and how we judge people.
Absolutely. And maybe by looking at Rose's story, we can learn something about ourselves too.
I think you're right. And I think we all need a little time to process all of this. What does all this mean for us? What can we take away from this whole deep dive into Pete Rose?
We'll be right back with some final thoughts. Don't go anywhere. Okay, so we're back. We've gone deep into the story of Pete Rose, all the ups and downs, all the controversy.
It really shows you how complicated things can be. I mean, you have these incredible achievements on one hand and these serious missteps on the other.
Yeah, and it's not just a baseball story, is it? It makes you think about forgiveness and second chances and what it really means to leave a legacy behind.
Exactly. It's something we all deal with in some way or another. I mean, how do we judge people who have done both good and bad things? It's tough. And in Rose's case, you've got those Hall of Fame numbers staring you in the face. But then there's this dark cloud of gambling hanging over it all. So what can we learn from all of this? What's the takeaway for all of us listening out there? I mean, what does this story about a baseball player from decades ago have to do with us today?
Well, I think it forces us to take a hard look at our own beliefs, you know, about things like accountability and forgiveness, and how we grapple with these questions when they come up in our own lives.
Yeah, you're right. And it shows you that even in a sport like baseball, with its clear-cut rules, there's always more to the story.
Always. And sometimes the most important conversations happen long after the game is over,
Right.
like we're having now.
Right. And you know what else? This whole thing makes you realize that time can really change how we see things. What was once seen as completely unforgivable in baseball is now, well, it's part of the business.
Yeah, and that makes you think, doesn't it? Are there things we judge harshly today that might be seen totally differently in the future? How do we balance holding people accountable with recognizing that they can change and grow? It's a tough one.
Yeah, it really is. And it's amazing how baseball, this sport, can still spark these kinds of conversations. I mean, it's been decades since Rose was banned, and yet we're still talking about him, still debating his place in history. He's become this symbol, a cautionary tale, but also maybe, just maybe, an example of how people can find redemption, even if it takes a long, long time.
Absolutely. And whether or not he ever gets his name cleared or makes it into the Hall of Fame, his story will continue to be told. People will debate it. It's like his legacy is still being written.
That's a great way to put it. So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with this. What do you think about Pete Rose? Do you think there's room for second chances? Can someone be both a legend and a rule breaker and still be forgiven? These are tough questions, no easy answers, but they're worth thinking about.
They are. And they can spark some really interesting conversations. Talk about it with your friends, your family. Think about it for yourself.
And remember, the most valuable thing you can take away from this, or any deep dive for that matter, is not just the information, but what it makes you think about. So keep exploring these ideas, keep the conversation going, and who knows, maybe you'll discover something new about yourself along the way.